3, 2, 1. Anthony Darby, I'm joined with Alex Bassen from gLeaf. Thank you for having us on. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is Alex's second time coming on. I thought there was a couple more than that. It seems we have a lot of conversations. You're kind of my go-to confidant when it comes to concentrates, when it comes to some of the new changes we're going to see in Maryland regarding the edibles. Your experience in multiple states and over the last year of really building up the gLeaf brand in this region has been so helpful to me. So I just thank you for coming on again, as always.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Before we started filming, we were kind of talking about some of the dynamics of the industry now in 2021. Your first year in the industry was 2013, 14?
2015, early January 2015.
Yeah. We wrote our application in 2015, technically got into the industry in 2017. So, in the last just about 5 years for me, just over 7 years for you, it's crazy to think about how much things have changed. And when it seemed like when we first got into it, almost everyone was craft. There was not a lot of MSOs or multi-state operators at the time. And if you think about the legislative trajectory of states approving licenses, when Maryland got approved and we got into it, there was very few East Coast peers that we could look to. Delaware was before us, but we all know how wonky their program is. New York's program was probably on a similar timeline, but much, much different in terms of regulations. I think we may have pulled a little tiny bit of data from Maine at the time, but I remember when we wrote our application and we were building our business model, we used Arizona for our data points. They had a patient participation rate of 1.2%, I remember, and Colorado was, I believe, more like 1.8, 1.9, or even closer to 2. We thought that was going to be a little high for an East Coast state, but I remember having to look at states that were way bigger than us and way differently situated within the geography of the United States to be able to pull data sets, because there just wasn't much happening on the East Coast. And now you look and there's a legal program in every state that touches Maryland.
Yep.
That's crazy. I just thought about that, but there really is. There's literally a legal West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey.
Nope. And not only that, you also have other states that are going beyond medical and hitting recreational around Maryland. So it's growing very fast.
Yeah, DC, of course, included in that bunch as well, which is, DC's always like the wonkiest of them all, which is not, it's DC.
Yeah.
So you guys, I wonder if the perception is that you guys are a much larger outfit than you are. I think you guys by far put out some of the most premier concentrates in Maryland, and you do it in a fairly small facility, right?
Very small. We're 1,500 square feet, and we only operate Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, with 6 people. So
that's so impressive to me, for a variety of reasons. One is, it's not just 6 people, but a couple of them have been with you since the very beginning.
Yep.
And I'm proud to say that we have a few employees that have stuck with us since the very first day, and to know the trajectory and the roller coaster ride that is this industry, and how the highs can be super high and lows can be super low. It's cool that you've been able to maintain a core team throughout that. It says a lot about your leadership, and it says a lot about your team as well, and their loyalty to getting medicine to patients. And I've had a chance to meet the guys that are doing the day-to-day extractions and processing, and the care they take in the product, and so I've had a chance to see almost every facility. I think there's probably, Cumberland's far away, man, so I've not been out to see some of the facilities out there, but I don't know that I've seen a processing facility that's smaller than your facility. And from a quality standpoint, you guys make the diamonds and sauce. You guys are making some really high grade consumer products that get me super excited. I posted, we had the lacrosse tournament last weekend, and magically got some Star Dog diamonds and sauce just right before the tournament. and to be able to get like a tool like that, for me, I look at cannabis as a tool. It's just like everything else. It's got its time and its place. But a tool like that with a terpene profile that matches my brain chemistry and allows me to be as productive and as on point as possible, it's just so exciting, and it's unmatched. I haven't found any products in the market that really touch me the same way. So kudos to you guys. What are some of the things that you're most proud of over the last few years when you think about from the time you got in there and actually had to work with a fire? I mean, you moved from I know I'm talking a lot, but for those that don't remember the story, Alec picked up and moved to Maryland on a whim and did not know the legislative layout, did not know local politicians or fire marshals or police or anyone, and really just through boots on the ground strategy, just hustled your way through your licensing process and building out a lab.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the thing that I'm most proud of is, that we're still operating in the same facility, and the cultivation has doubled their output up there, and we've hired like an extra one person or two people, and we're still in the same space. We have the same core leadership team down here that has been with us now for about 3 years now, so it's definitely makes me proud to see the people that I took time to bring up to my level as the best that I could, that they're still there and still coming into work every day, thoroughly enjoying the work that we do, and we look out for each other, we help each other, and we bring each other up on each other's bad days, and when we're having good days, it's just it's a fun place to be at and to work.
Was there ever any like oh shit moments, like maybe this place is too small?
That happens, I would say, about half the day, every single day. And it's just, we get through it. It's a lot of playing Tetris in the place where we have to move these 5 bins to put these other, products over here, and then we move the bins back. It's just constant Tetris.
Some extra hurdles in dealing with such a small space. I can also imagine employee dynamics. I mean, it's a tight space. If even the greatest personalities, even the most positive people have days, and sometimes that tight space, if you have the right team, it almost doesn't allow for you to spill it out because it's so small. And sometimes it can get hot in the kitchen, so to say.
Yeah, exactly. But we've all kind of been working, other than a couple of new members, but we've all been working with each other for about 3 years, so we know when that one person is having a day, we kind of know how to handle that, either by letting him just do his thing for the day, or giving him some extra support, giving her some extra support, or we just kind of like know each other's personalities and know how to kind of handle it at this point.
You're demonstrating that you have a really strong leadership qualities as you're explaining how you're handling your team, and that's important to me. It's something that I value very much. I would argue that there's a lack of empathy sometimes and a lack of leadership, strong leaders within the cannabis space. I think a lot of times because it's so hard, and it can be fight or flight 95% of your time, and there's leaders that can handle that, and there's leaders that can't, and it's interesting to hear you talk about the way that you guys handle that, and it's so great for me to hear that because it validates some of the things that we're doing here. My question is this the first time that you were in a leadership position? Like when you were before, I understand that you were the expert and you were doing the extraction, but a lot of times in my expertise, the same folks that may be incredibly methodical and excellent through an extraction process may not necessarily have the soft skills or leadership skills to want to manage and lead people.
So I was at a management position out in Colorado. That was the last position I had before moving out here. But that was very, mom and pop, and I think that was a very good learning experience for me, and I just kind of moved that over to... You
had a pretty good leader when you went out to Colorado, right?
Yeah, I've had a couple of good leaders and a couple of good mentors up there that really kind of took me under their wing.
It's so important. I try to, when I can, and see younger folks in the industry that I think can help and benefit from my experience and some of the pain and struggles that I had. I definitely try to make sure that I can help apply those lessons learned, and because I personally feel that overall the cannabis industry is fairly collaborative. I think you will hear people say differently, but I pick and choose the relationships that I formed. I don't have super strong relationships with every single cultivar out there. I don't have super strong relationships with every processor out there. We don't buy from everyone. It's more important for me to have strong, deep-seated relationships with the partners that are going to provide the products that I'm going to give to our patients. I have to be able to believe in those products. I have to be able to have a confidence that's going to be a good vendor for our patients. And it's been cool. gLeaf was one of the very first ones that we got product from. You guys were early to market. We were early to market. And it's been a really great relationship for the last 3 years of providing products, and I've always had a lot of pride for operators on the Eastern Shore, and you guys have always just done such a good job being here. It's cool. We've done some joint events together and had opportunities to collaborate, and I look forward to doing more of that. And that's kind of a good transition. We are seeing, I mentioned 2 weeks ago getting a Diamonds and Sauce product, and there's probably a lot of people that have no clue what I'm talking about that are listening to this. For context, I'll try to explain it, and then please jump in and help me out. But these types of products, the evolution that I'm seeing now in some of the products is understanding how important the terpene profiles are to these finished products, and understanding that in some cases, to get the finest products, you still may want to extract and almost have that isolated THC, but then you're not just enjoying that product by itself like an isolate. You're actually then adding it into the extracted terpenes, which are delivered in much higher percentages than you'd be able to find in flower. Meaning, I've seen you put out products, you know better than I do, but definitely in the high teens and probably above 20% terps.
I think our highest was like mid 20s, and that was like on the high terpene part of the extract.
So from a consumer experience, if you're someone that understands what terpene profiles act with your own personal endocannabinoid system, and you really start understanding how these products work with you, to be able to find a product that's so concentrated in the terpenes, like for me it's limonene. And when I see a super high limonene leader, and then it's got a little bit of linalool in it, some myrcene, that's kind of the profile that I'm looking for. Stardog is right in line with that.
Yep.
I know that's going to give me that relaxing feeling. And flower, if you see a terpene profile in flower if it's above 1.5%, you have quality flower. You're not seldom ever going to see it above 3%. But you could pull gLeaf products and see 7, 8, 9, sometimes as high as 10% of a single terpene. And then, with that high THC content, like Diamonds and Sauce product, you're able to use just a little tiny bit of product, so much less than you would use from flower. You're able to medicate a lot less often, and it just seems like a much more of a connoisseur's experience for me. That's the experience that I'm looking for.
Oh, so you're really looking for the terpenes that you enjoy, that work with your brain chemistry. Those are the monoterpenes that are typically off gassing during your flower drying period. So it's hard to compare what you're liking, which is the Diamond and Sauce, with any type of flower, because the second you start hanging and drying your flower, then you're naturally off gassing those terpenes and you're losing that terpene content. So by freezing it like post harvest, you're actually preserving those monoterpenes, and then extracting it just as is right there. We're able to preserve that and not lose it during the process.
So am I correct in saying that the terpene profiles peak before drying and curing, and they're going to go down as you say off gas. That means when they're hanging in those rooms and they're trying to get the moisture level and trying to get the flower cured. And we've seen so many variations of the cure process, but one of the things that we know of a good curing process is it will take steps to preserve terpenes. Because you can go through a curing process where you can really just destroy great flower.
You could just over dry it, and terpenes, monoterpenes are such a volatile thing that it'll start off gassing even at room temperature. So if you let it sit in your dry rooms for 10-14 days, if you're not controlling your relative humidity and it gets hot and it gets humid, then those volatile compounds are going to off gas and lose during that process quicker than either fresh freezing or having a climate controlled area.
So before, and once again, I'm just a consumer at the end of the day like everybody else. But before Maryland, I never saw fresh frozen products. Wasn't familiar with the reason why that was so valuable. But to your point, that's what I go for now. So pretty much all the concentrates that I'm going, I don't do a lot of shatter. I don't do a lot of distillate. Pretty much everything that I do is fresh frozen, and because of that high terpene.
That fresh frozen, that really started becoming mainstream. I would say right around when I moved out here to Maryland, which was 2018.
Were you not doing it in Colorado when you guys were there?
So from 2015 to 2017, it was all shatter, crumble, and wax. And the reason why we weren't fresh freezing was because they saw the yield that was coming out from that extraction process, and they were comparing it to a dried and cured extraction. So a typical dried and cured, you're yielding between 10 and 17%, depending on your quality of starting material. With fresh frozen, with all that water weight, you're looking at a 2 to 4% return. So a lot of CEOs who are kind of looking at numbers and not necessarily quality or the reason why they're different are going to look at that yield difference and say, no, I want that 10 to 17%, and we're wasting money and time on that 2 to 4.
Which is a sad perspective. We all agree. And I'm really proud that, and I'm not proud because I'm happy that you guys have been able to at gLeaf convince them in the value of those products to get their buy-in. Because out of all the processors, and some of it is supply chain. You guys are vertically integrated, so you guys have the ability to supply yourselves with product. But out of the processors, you may not know this offhand, I can only think of 3 or 4 that do fresh frozen.
Yeah, I think anybody who's trying to compete and put out the best products possible, they're doing that extraction. If not sprinkling it in, they're doing it as the dominant product that they're putting through.
So in Colorado, was it mostly shatter and vape pens, and was that when vape pens first started getting their
Yeah, so I worked for a couple of processors, and it was mostly shatter, wax, and then we were making a lot of edible oil for gummies. We were making these chill pills that were really good, and just other various edible products. Chill pill is it's like this little spearmint, almost like a mint, and it's like these awakening mints, but it was like a lozenge or something.
Almost like the Dixie tablets.
Yeah, but it would actually taste good.
Nice.
And they were 5 to 10 milligrams each. And the oil that we were giving them was all strain specific. We weren't taking it down to distillate. It was full extract oil. So we were able to designate whether the edibles were sativa, indica, or hybrid.
How do you feel about that? Do you feel that when you ingest terpenes that you can expect a similar feeling than when you inhale them? Or
So, me personally, I kind of don't really get the difference, but I do hear a lot of other people that are like, no, I need, indica or sativa strain specific edibles, and they swear by it. So
I'm in the
for
same
me,
boat.
if it could help one person, then I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, and I've read some research. Companies like Wana basically say that they don't. Sorry, they contradict them. They all contradict themselves, because a lot of them will say that they don't feel that it needs to be strain specific, or that necessarily has the same impact as inhalation. And I agree with that. For me personally, it's experience, but I know that we have some of the gummies down the stairs that are indica, or they basically are infused with indica-based terpenes or sativa-based terpenes, and people seem to be choosy. They seem to be, they seem to care.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested. I think we have a lot to learn about edibles and beverages.
Yep.
I just spent some time out in Arizona, where they have more mature markets out there. Some of the feedback that I got, I found interesting. It's almost separate markets. The folks that are after the same experience that I just mentioned, with high terpenes and inhalation and dabbing and concentrates, fresh frozen products, are typically not buying the edibles. People that are buying the edibles are typically not buying flower. They're typically not smoking. There's a lot of experiential use with alcohol consumers with edibles, especially as it gets into the beverages. It becomes a method of administration they're used to. They're used to having a drink. They're used to consuming alcohol in this way. So now when you put cannabis in the same kind of delivery method, you see that kind of taking off. And I'm just, and then the health side of things as well, is you're starting to finally, which I've been had a high desire for myself, is you're starting to see more like recovery products, like post-workout bars, but that have some THC and some CBD in them.
Yep.
Not just the cookies and the brownies and all that. But I got to explore a lot of the products out there, and I was surprised at the taste, far surpassing some of the gummies that we have here in state. And it seems like they're getting a little bit more. Like the beverage that I had out there, I've had some other Dixie beverages. I've had some of the larger brand beverages in Colorado. This beverage out there was way better. I mean, it was like a Stewart's orange soda. Like, if you're familiar with that brand, it was
yeah. Getting your THC or your CBD is definitely not an easy process to make soluble with any type of beverage. So the people who are doing it right have put in the work to get there. And
is that it's all nanoparticle technology, or is that
I would say probably nano emulsified. The problem with that, though, is once you start breaking your molecules down to such a small size, your flavor, enzymes in your mouth start taking those molecules, and before, where they were too big to actually absorb in there, once you break it down, they're getting absorbed pretty much immediately. And when that happens, you start tasting the bitterness of your raw THC cannabinoids. So the people who are doing it right have the bitter flavor enhancers, and they know how to just put the right ingredients in to mask that bad flavor that you're naturally going to get with your nano emulsified products.
There's also carbonation issues that I didn't realize. You have to double carbonate than you would a normal soda when you add in the THC and all of that. I'm not exactly sure how, but it just affects the carbonation process as well.
Yep.
And these guys were craft too. It was cool. It was not Pepsi bottle company. It was a two-spout bottle machine.
Yep.
And
semi-automatic, semi-manual machine where you have a person taking a bottle at each
500
one.
600 bottles a day production.
Yeah.
It meets their market, fills their dispensaries, and they're good.
Yep.
It was a really good process. You would have appreciated the practicality that was taken in place when they built this kitchen, and They were actually going through the GMP process, and the GMP inspector said it was the smallest facility he'd ever been in that was asking to be GMP certified, because he used to go into like huge, Johnson & Johnsons and places like that, and these guys were 2,000 square feet tops kitchen. They were just churning.
Nice.
So it was cool. So, you said fresh frozen was probably right around that 2017-ish time period, and then what do you see in the future? Like, so that's popular here in Maryland. Is that still new in other states, or is it pretty much at this point like there's national recognition that this is a trend?
Yeah.
Are there any other trends that you're picking up on?
I see companies either going in the route of just old school, let's make good quality flower and, allocate a ton of fresh frozen and make really good products and really treat it like a medicine. And then I also see companies going into the direction of formulation. Let's take everything down to distillate. It doesn't matter the quality that goes into it. And let's make drinks and let's make edibles and let's take it down to just the molecule and get rid of all those terpenes that have zero value to making it edible.
Yeah.
So I feel like those two directions are what companies are kind of going towards.
We know which one's easier and more profitable.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think that easier one is definitely the route to, corporate cannabis, in my opinion. I think.
Is that a concern for you that the cannabis will get very corporatized over the next 10 to 15 years?
I wouldn't say concerned. I think there's definitely benefits to it, and there's definitely things that, might not be as good about it. But I was getting paid in cash in 2015. And I had to show up to the bank with, a whole bunch of 20s every 2 weeks. And with corporate cannabis, I don't have to worry about that. My W-2 comes in on time. I get direct deposit and 401k and all these great benefits that come with it. So
I paid my employees in Mylar bags for the first 9-12 months.
Yeah.
We were open every Friday. I would go in the back with the money machine and print them out and fill the bags and put a Sharpie marker, and they got
sign here that you received the cash, and
so we
you
actually used a payroll company that would like do all the deductions. They got a pay stub.
Yep, same.
But I had to give them cash.
Yep.
And like it's interesting because I think there's a stigma when even in how I said it, like are you nervous about corporations coming into cannabis, and there's almost a setup question because it could have been like, well, yeah, because they're going to do this, that, and the other. But to your point, there needs to, for us to scale, for us to get the momentum and to get better access at a national level, we're going to have companies that do it well continue to grow and be able to spread their model. And as someone who started off as this little mom and pop and realized how much more I've had to corporatize my own business here, the last 2 hires were the first time that we've ever hired someone that I didn't interview personally myself. But I was busy, and we hire so often now that like I can't be I guess I can or can't, but I'm not in every interview anymore. And all these things that I'm surprised that we need now, HR software, all these different tools, because we have 30 plus employees.
Yep. And
if we don't corporatize at some point, then you just become, you're not scalable, and you become
less structured
less
and
inefficient and sloppy.
Yep.
So for me, it's a balance of like making sure, okay, how do we make sure that when the decision comes, my decisions aren't fresh frozen versus all distillate products, but when we're making these decisions, how do we always make sure that we have a patient first perspective? How do we make sure that we never forget our roots? We never forget what got us here in the first place. We had a chance to build a new facility. You didn't see chandeliers, because that just means more expensive medicine for patients, right?
Yep.
Like, we've always tried to have a practical nature to how we approach this. We've always tried to be professional. I modeled my business off a lot of corporations. I wrote when I gave, and it's funny, Cody just broke out this presentation that I gave in 2015. to the original hires, where I said, I looked at a couple different corporations that I liked: Chick-fil-A's customer service model, Starbucks innovation model, how they get people to change their behaviors. No one called a coffee venti before they did it. I was in a payments industry and never used my phone to pay for anything, but Starbucks put a really crazy incentive program. If you join the rewards club, pay with your phone. Next thing I know, boom, there I am paying with my phone. Just to be able to get people to change their behavior through, not forcing them, I thought was interesting. Innovation of companies like Tesla. We were open on Sundays for the longest time. Part of it was Chick-fil-A. I knew that everyone needed a day off. And then we got to a point where I said, okay, you're no longer this mom and pop business. If you want to be the largest dispensary in Eastern Shore, how do you say that we're the largest dispensary in Eastern Shore Monday through Saturday, but not Sunday? Hey, if you need medicine, you had an anxiety attack on Saturday night, so you smoked all your medicine, and now Sunday morning you are looking to get your day started, and you're going to wake up anxious with no medicine, you got to be there for those patients. For sure. And my staff bought in. And it wasn't, hey guys, we're opening up Sunday because I think I can make an extra 12% to the bottom line, or I think it's going to be this, that. If we're in a patient-serving business, we need to be in a patient-serving business 7 days a week. And we're going to have reduced hours, and we're going to do some things to make sure that we're not killing ourselves. But at the end of the day, it's in our DNA to serve patients, and being open 7 days a week is more in line with doing that than being closed every Sunday. Yep. So it's interesting, and it's also it's crazy that you've been able to weather the growth in a better position than we were. 6 months into our dispensary, we were feeling it bad, and it was about a year and a half. And then COVID happened, and the dispensary was just so small. It was a struggle bus. And I'm so thankful now that we have more resources, and we went from 5 employees to 30, but you've continued to increase output, you continue to innovate, you continue to do all those things in gLeaf with, much less resource needed. And, that's impressive.
Thank you.
So let's talk about, we touched a little bit about some of the consumable products. I think that'd be a good kind of place to leave off on today. And the fact that I know that Maryland consumers are very eager to start seeing the abundance of consumable products that they thought they were going to get: beverages, sweets, treats, healthy foods. Where do you see Maryland at? How do you feel about Maryland's regulations, and what do you think the path is for processors right now?
Well, the new regulations, the biggest changes that are being made are allowing the edibles to go down. So I think there's a lot of people who are either in build-out phases or in, the operation side where they're planning the build-out phases. So I think having the edibles are going to be a big game changer to Maryland. And then I think they're allowing another 10 to 12 processors in the state. So I think the competition is going to go up, and I think that will increase the quality on what is actually getting put out onto the market.
Do you think, we've already seen it a little bit, I'm curious, as these new processors come to market, along with current processors looking at being innovative within the consumable markets, I wonder how many of them will say, let's go get top talent and let's try to innovate and make new products here under our brand, or how many of them will say, this is the top selling cookie in Colorado, let's bring it to Maryland. This is the top selling gummy in California, let's bring it to Maryland. We saw Curio bring Wana, a well-respected brand. You've seen GTI bring Incredibles. Yep. So you see some of that, and basically they're licensing those brands. Those brands can't be made in any other state. They have to be made in Maryland, so they get like a kind of a manufacturer's license. They have to follow protocol, and then they'll manufacture Incredibles at the GTI facility or at the Curio facility. Do you think that there'll be a lot more of that, or do you think that's just that's more of a result of an early market, and we'll see more companies innovating and building out their own products as opposed to just leveraging these brands?
I think it's going to happen at the same ratio. You even have Betty's Eddies, who's been operating in other states, pretty big out here in Maryland. But it really just depends on the processor's vision and their confidence in doing R&D on either making something themselves and innovating, or going out to an Incredibles, a Coda, somebody out west who has a tried and true formula, and to get that down. So I feel like it's going to be the ratio, and you'll see people doing it themselves, and you're also going to continue to see other brands that have been out there.
We've like that licensing model is interesting, because we've seen a lot of, I don't want to call them pretenders, but just startups or newer companies out there trying to sell their licensing model. And for me, I'm like, without a brand, without brand recognition, like it's tough for me to. There was an ice cream brand that was going around trying to get processors to buy in, it's like freeze dried ice cream concept. And I know how hard it is to build a brand. I know how hard it is to build out a product suite and all of that, and to somehow think that you can just package that up and move from state to state to state, unless you are like a WANA, or you are someone that has the infrastructure and all of that. It seemed like a heavy lift.
Yeah.
The cannabis space is going to continue to look different, and it will be. I think the Cookies brand for me is an interesting case study, a non-biased perspective on it. It's people are buying legal cookie products in California, going down across the Mexican border, and selling them for 3 times what they would pay in a legal market for
it's
that
crazy.
brand.
Yeah.
You can go on DHgate and buy Cookies bags.
Just put whatever you want in there.
Right, yeah. But you don't see brand recognition like that so pronounced so quick.
It's very rare.
And I would argue without anything amazing in terms of innovation of product or quality. I don't have a problem saying that some of the products that Culta puts out, I think, are better than some of the Cookies products that they put out, but they charge a lot more for those cookie products.
Yeah.
I just recently started trying a couple of the Cookies products, and I probably went the first, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months of them carrying my dispensary without carrying a product, because I was skeptical of a company that puts so much emphasis on branding and not on product innovation, and what seemed to me focus on necessarily quality. Super high price point, supposed to be a super high quality brand. You got 4% terps in your concentrate. That doesn't get me super excited, like, no matter what graphic you put on there or not. And
I think a lot of people are focused on what the bag looks like, and maybe not like the COA that has your cannabinoids and terpenes, and what that product is actually doing for you as a person.
Yeah. And I think it's just so important. And like, I know that my perspective is skewed because I've always been a C of A guy. I've always been dying to get into those details every time we get a batch in. When I go downstairs and buy my products, I don't look at names. I look at brands that I like, and then I'm looking at terpene profiles.
Yep.
And I'm mixing and matching some extreme daytime, some extreme nighttime, and then a bunch of hybrids in the middle to float me through. So it's I can't think of another brand in cannabis right now that has the same momentum as Cookies. It's wild. It's a marketing case study for sure.
I would say maybe the Jungle Boys, and for flower,
are they out west?
They're California, and I think they're now
dispensaries, right?
They're cultivation and dispensaries, and I think they're producing solventless rosin. And
so that's how they got on my radar.
Yeah,
was I've seen some of their videos and some of their stuff online. We talked about the evolution and some of the things that are happening out west, like in the Jungle Boys dispensary. Never been there, but what I've been told is they have really high quality flower. So you get all into the flower purchase back like you would back in the day. But then they have press guys that are on site.
Yep.
And you literally like go up to the guy and you say, okay, here's my pineapple skunk, and he presses it, and then you tip them out based upon their ability to get you the high yield, to do a good job, make sure it's not too hot, they didn't burn it up.
Yep.
They also gave you a good solid yield. And that finished product is like sap. It's not really easy to deal with, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely depends on like the strain that you're putting into it, but typically your flower rosins are going to be a little bit sappier, a little bit on the greener, darker side. But yeah, I mean, Jungle Boys do a phenomenal job of cleaning up their either dry sift or their hash rosin. They do put out a really good product, and they're definitely sacrificing yield a little bit to put out a better product, which is why people like
Salisbury, Maryland, talking about
literally
by doing it the right way.
Yeah, and you have never shopped there. I've never shopped there, but we both know that it's a good product.
Yeah, and I know that I asked MMCC if I was able to press flower in my dispensary, which was a big hard no.
Yep.
But it would be cool. I mean, especially imagine heading down to the beach and grabbing some flower, having it fresh pressed for you, like for the weekend and stuff. Like that. There's a lot of value to that. And maybe one day we'll start seeing, some changes as these things get more popular. Are you seeing? We talked about the nano emulsion. Is that am I saying that right?
Yep.
Process. Are there any other things in the edible world or consumable products that you're seeing that are kind of much different than when we were just making butter and throwing them in brownies?
I mean, an edible is an edible. If you're dosing it right, then it's kind of what it is. The nano emulsion thing, that's starting to hit a little bit more mainstream. There's a lot of SOPs on Future 4200 where it gives you a step-by-step process on how to take distillate and make it water soluble. So it's starting to become mainstream. I bet you in another year it's going to be widespread everywhere. I know we're currently working on that in Virginia, where we're currently producing edibles and stuff and other products like that. And it's an easy process to take your molecule down that small, but it is hard to make that either edible or drink actually taste good.
Anything that works with Flying Dog and gLeaf? It was announced a couple of years ago that there was some rumblings. Haven't heard much. I know you may not be able to give details, but
yeah. So we're currently building out our new lab and kitchen up in Frederick, and from what I heard, we're gonna make a drink line, and we're gonna try and put that out.
That's phenomenal. I know that two things come to mind. One is I think of all like the local craft beers and craft breweries that we have in Maryland, and how cool that's going to be. I know the guys at Burley Oak I believe they put out a CBD infused beer. We talked to them. Our issue is that none of the products that we make are water soluble and would just sit at the top of their can.
Yeah.
So it'll be neat to see as that technology gets better and as they get more refined in how they can preserve taste and quality while you're still using that. Because nano particle technology by its nature also has a faster absorption rate than...
Makes it more bioavailable. Yeah. So when you go to ingest a product that's been nano-emulsified, you're going to feel it hit your system a lot sooner than a normal, just distillate or whatever type of THC you're absorbing. And your body's also going to process it a lot faster. So that typical, I'm going to feel this in 2 hours and then it's going to last all night. You're going to feel it in 20, 30 minutes and your body's going to fully process that in a couple hours.
Yeah.
So it's making it closer to ingesting like inhalation. Exactly.
Yeah. Which is my biggest challenge with consumables is I don't like to wait.
Yeah.
And it gives me anxiety. I'm like, is this thing
Agreed.
kicking in? Yeah, is it kicking in?
Eat like 3 more, and then then you're uncomfortable on the bed.
So I'm sleeping.
Yep.
I've found some. I don't microdose all the time, but I found that with edibles, like I kind of do. My sweet spot's like 10 milligrams, and I'm not really looking for that like effect from the edible. But I do notice that like I'll sleep a little better, just a little more relaxed, just a little. It's just like a little like value add.
Yeah.
It's never gonna for me. It's never gonna replace inhalation. That's how I medicate. I just can't imagine me moving off of that anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree.
As always, man, I always appreciate you coming in here. The last thing I'll mention is just a random fact that I thought I was we were talking about this is also just the growth of hemp and CBD in consumer products. So I had the pleasure of going to a beautiful store called Alta yesterday with a lady friend.
Nice.
And I'm like biting my lip and like stomping through. Because every single thing is CBD infused this and hemp infused that. They had CBD acne stickers. They had, just the amount of, and some of it's hemp seed oil, and some of it's just like the one quality is less than the next, and it was interesting that there was so much of an abundance of products. It was the most that I'd ever seen.
Pretty crazy.
No less than 100 product count of Alta's. It's almost like 3 or 4% of all of Alta's products now have CBD in it.
Wow,
and it's crazy.
It's becoming mainstream. Everybody looks for it and thinks it's a better product or whatever.
And I think that I think there's a lot of value. We obviously sell a topical CBD product, and I think as legal markets get open, I'm really curious to see how the topical and beauty products explode out of this, both with some validity and a lot more fancy marketing and consumerism.
Yep. Definitely interesting to see how the whole CBD thing is evolving.
Do you use CBD yourself?
When I get CBD, it's typically I got my wisdom teeth pulled, so I came here, I got a bunch of Wana gummies, walked over to your CBD shop, and then I got a bunch of Wana CBD as well.
Nice.
But I don't consume CBD on the regular.
Everyone's different. Everyone's, balancing their own system.
But I do feel like doing it every once in a while is a good way to reset my endocannabinoid system, and it kind of just like refreshes and, almost restarts the system. So
excellent.
Yeah, I do like it for sure.
Cool. Thanks again, man. I always appreciate you having me on.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.